Well, good morning. Thanks for joining us this Sunday. You know, typically at this time of year, state legislators are back in their district working on constituent concerns. But this summer they are spending more time in Lansing, developing a plan to fix our roads, and other issues are still to be resolved. Are we making progress? We'll ask that question of someone who plays a key leadership role in the Michigan legislature. It's coming up right now.
From TV6, this is the Ryan Report. Now, here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, State Senator Arlan Meekhof plays a major role in determining the legislative agenda as the Senate Majority Leader. Senator Meekhof began serving the 30th Senate District in January 2011. Prior to his election as Senator, he served for 4 years in the Michigan House of Representatives. In the Senate, he was chosen by his Republican colleagues to serve as Majority Floor Leader for the 2011-2014 term and was elected as Senate Majority Leader for his second term. He also serves as Chair of the Government Operations Committee and the Michigan Capital Committee. We're pleased he could join us this morning. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for being invited, John. Thank you.
You're visiting the Upper Peninsula this week. What are you seeing?
I'm traveling around with Senator Casperson and Representative Kivula, and we're looking at a lot of different things in the timber and mining industry and the concerns that there are around those. Those are well-paying, great jobs here in the UP, and we're trying to figure out how we support Senator Casperson and Representative Kivula and Ed McBroom, and how we do all those things well, because we want people to be employed and have high-skilled, high-paying jobs here in the UP.
Some of this kind of eye-opening for you, especially the mining operations?
Well, the mining operations for certain. I had seen some of the timbering operations before. I've been an avid outdoorsman and been hunting in the UP many, many times. But the mining is very, very interesting to me because I had not been below ground in a mine like that. And also we saw the open pit mine as well. Heard a lot of concerns about noise and conditions of roads and length of roads and time to travel to bring materials. And energy was the other one that came up, a big conversation today.
Let's find out just a little bit more about you. You're from Olive Township. Tell us where that is and what's Olive Township famous for?
Olive Township is in Ottawa County, so I represent the 260-some thousand people in Ottawa County. That's Grand Haven, Holland, and then we're Grand Valley Colleges in Allendale. Okay. And I've served that and lived in that county my entire life. And my wife and I are happy to be from residents of Ottawa County.
And I see you're a grandfather too. That's a good
thing.
In
fact, and I'll just say to your listeners, because not too many people know, I have 4 1/4 grandchildren, and the quarter is the new announcement.
So you're announcing it here.
Yes,
well, very good.
On your show.
Okay, well I have 7, so you know.
I got a ways to go.
It's not a competition. And Olive Township is just kind of southeast of Grand Rapids, I believe.
Yeah, it's almost directly west of Grand Rapids. It's strategically located between Holland, about halfway between Holland and Grand Haven.
Okay, and you were also the township supervisor in that township before.
Yeah, I'd served a couple of roles there as trustee and as township supervisor as well. And before the large crash that we had in the economy in the late 2008, 2009, it was kind of the fastest growing area around there, around the hub of Grand Haven and Holland.
So among other things, you kind of understand the problems of local government.
Yeah, and local government is the closest to people, and that's where you hear the most arguments from even from your brother-in-laws or friends at church, or even when you're at the gas station. And try to apply those principles and things that we've learned there in serving constituents and bring them to a higher level.
We'll jump back to that in a minute, but the number one item on the agenda has to be roads. Now, just a little recap. The House came up with a plan. You came up with a plan. The Senate approved. The House was back in session this week. There was some thought they might be able to deal with some of the issues to bring the two plans into agreement. Didn't happen. Where do you see it, the issue right now?
Well, let's just go back a little bit further. It's been 17 years since we actually tackled this issue. We tried it through Proposal 1, and citizens that I think in the right forum said, we don't like that. Go back and try something different. Look at the budget you already have, and before you ask us for any new revenue, look at what you already spend and can you do it better. So the Senate plan does some of that, sent to the House, and they still have a lot of work to do. I don't see that there's a timeline associated with this, because we also want to do it well. If we're going to ask the citizens for more money to construct roads and get them back up to a good or acceptable level, we want them to know that we're spending their money wisely. They're getting value for their dollar, that the roads we are going to construct will last longer and have less maintenance. Those are the things we want to tackle as well. And we believe we can be able to do that. And there's three parts of that. It's the governor and the House and the Senate trying to make that all come together.
Yeah, you know, and some people would say, well, Republicans have a supermajority in the Senate, majority in the House. Republican governor. Why can't we get some agreement? It's kind of a fractured majority in a way, isn't it?
I would describe it a little differently. I would say if you're sitting around the table with all your kids and your grandkids and you're having dinner and you're going to talk about the one TV program you're going to watch after dinner, there's probably not much agreement around the table, even inside your own family.
It's true.
So we have some of that as well. And people have lots of ideas. Some are very creative, some are possible, some are probable. Some are maybe not, the timing isn't right for them yet. They may be somewhere in the future. But it's difficult to get the famous zip code, which we call 56, 20, and 1. You need 56 representatives, 20 senators, and 1 governor to agree on something, and that does take some time.
Isn't probably the most divisive issue within the party the raising of taxes, raising of revenue, where that's going to come from?
Yeah, and I think the best say it to your listeners, 17 years ago, if we would have put an inflation factor on when they changed the gas price, or taxes on gas at that point, we would not have this conversation because inflation would have kept us up and we'd have about $1 billion more a year.
Right.
So our buying power has been eroded. The cost of constructing roads is going up. So the two lines are in trajectory are going away from each other and will continue to be a problem until we solve it for this term.
And do you think it's going to be solved when you get back in session in the fall?
I'm very hopeful because I believe the citizens, when they rejected Proposal 1, basically said, legislature, governor, you fix this, and we're going to try to do that.
On the other side of the island, perhaps elsewhere, some of the criticism of the plans out there are the money that's coming out of economic development. How do you respond to that?
Well, that's in the House plan. That isn't in the Senate plan.
Okay.
But what we're saying is money that we currently spend, we have to reprioritize. We have to look at how we're doing that. Are we doing it well? And that money that reprioritized will go right to roads, and the new revenue that we raise will go in the top of what's called the formula PA 51 and comes down through roads and does help a few other things in mass transit and harbors and other things as well. So the attempt is to try to put something there that lasts for a period of time. And I will just say what our plan actually puts a sunset on the revenue, the new revenue, saying we believe somewhere in the future, 15, 18 years out, a future legislature should have a discussion and say, is taxing fuel the right way to fund our roads? Is it some other method? Is there some other way to do it that's better? So we don't want to just put new revenue on and let it go forever. We want to address it again in the future.
And I know some Democrats are proposing an increase in business taxes, and that's been described as a non-starter with the Republicans.
Well, I don't think anybody wants to go back to the decade under the former governor, not casting blame or doing any of that. But that was a very difficult time in Michigan history, and that was the solution for all of the problems at that time, and they didn't work. Okay. We need bold leadership in the stuff that we're doing, I think, balancing the budget, paying down our debt into the future. Most people don't know that. That's why some of our budget increases are there, because we're paying off debt. And we're paying into retirement systems to make them whole, the things that we've agreed to do in the past. And we are doing the financial things that every family needs to do in their budget to make their family viable. One
of the other criticisms from some is the loss of the earned income credit for
again, that's
people.
in the House plan, is not in the Senate plan.
Not in the Senate plan.
At this point. I mean, it's something we have entertained and did think about. So it's one of the options.
Okay. Very good. I want to talk to you about what we call the big box store problem, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Back with Senator Meekhof after we take this break. We're talking this morning with Senator Arlan Meekhof. He is the Senate Majority Leader in the Michigan Senate. One of the issues up here is one we've called the big box store issue. It has to do with the way property is being appraised. Is this issue catching on in other parts of the state, because it's having a huge impact up here?
Well, it is in areas where there's been some economic slowdown, and other areas that haven't recovered as quickly as parts of other parts of Michigan, say the Grand Rapids or Lansing or some even Detroit area. So it is having an impact, and assessors are looking at it, but particularly the big box stores are looking at it as a way to help trim their costs in properties that they are going to get rid of, or that they're going to downsize at some point. So under Senator Casperson's leadership, he introduced the bill last year, and we did some work on it, and we continue to work through Senator Casperson's office how we can address this problem.
I think people see the tax tribunal as a vital part of our government, serves an important purpose, kind of a last resort for taxpayers, but it almost seems with the direction they've taken here that they're like rewriting the law.
Many have said that.
Is that a fair assessment?
I think many have said that. I don't know if I can't measure if it's a fair assessment or not, but I would say they're taking the opportunity from folks that have been appointed to change the way we would have interpreted that section of the law, especially after Proposal A. Whether you agree with Proposal A or not, had safeguards in for some of this stuff, and I believe they're getting around that a little bit.
Right. You served in local government as a township trustee and township supervisor. These units of government are finding themselves in kind of a deep hole, and so hopefully something can be done to deal with this issue, or we're going to be facing some. I'm not sure what these units of government will do to make up the lost revenue.
Yeah, well, it's revenue and it's also expense. It's both sides of the ledger. You having served on city councils, we talked about. If you're depending on that revenue because you believe that store is going to be there continually, you may make choices at the local government level to extend or revise or do some things to improve, make public improvements, and you're relying on that revenue to come in, but now it's changed.
Right.
So some of the decisions we make on expense side impact the loss of revenue coming in from the other.
And of course, these local communities are in the same position the state is.
Yes.
Where do you find that revenue?
Well, when we plan on revenue, or we believe a certain segment of the economy is going to grow, and we think that's the right way to go, then the economy changes. It does cause us to think differently on how we have to right-size our budget.
Let's talk a little bit about electric power. I know the Senate recently, the Senate Energy and Technology Committee released its Michigan Clean Energy Plan. What's the purpose of this plan?
Well, Senator Knopf has released his idea on energy, and Senator Knopf has been involved in the energy discussion for as long as he served in the House and in the Senate. One of our gifted legislators and very, very in tune with this understanding of this basic issue. It has a little bit of a different wrinkle in the UP based on the fact that there's not as much generation and or transmission, but to the growing need, the items that we're talking about or the economies that we're talking about between timbering and mining have a lot of energy use.
Right.
And how do they do that, and how do they help themselves control their costs and choice and things like that. The House has a plan that basically eliminates choice, and the Senate has a plan that ingratiates choice to a point, but then also requires the alternative energy supplier to be more reliable and things like that. So this is the beginning point of that discussion on the Senate side.
I think that choice is a critical part of this issue. I think some of those consumers who are experiencing benefit from choice are concerned they could lose that benefit. Is that likely to happen? Under the House plan, apparently it
Under
would.
the House plan, they would, yes. Under the Senate plan, you can stay on choice, and even includes people that are in the queue wanting to get on choice. They could get on there, but there'd be some other requirements for them, and that's where a lot of the heartburn is coming on that side. I would also add that some of our customers, some of the alternative energy supplier customers are schools. School districts have done this. So if they lose their ability to have choice, the cost of operating a school building is going to go up and things like that. So those are important things to think about as we go forward.
I think here Michigan Tech University may have used that process too.
Probably, yes.
Right. There's also some changes in the renewable energy, changing some mandates that are in the law. What are we hoping to accomplish?
Well, I think Senator Knopf is trying to accomplish that if we're going to pay for additional renewables, that it be done in a different way. And he's opening that part of the law to say, is what we're doing, is it working? And is it working well enough to continue it, or do we have to alter it? So it's, again, at the beginning of the discussion to see if that can be improved or doesn't need to be there.
Okay. We've got some more questions for you. We'll get back to those in just a couple of minutes. Back with more on the Ryan Report after one more break. And again, our guest this morning is Senator Arlan Meekhof. He's the Senate Majority Leader, talking about a lot of issues. We covered some of the big ones, the roads and electric power, big box stores. Some issues that are important in Lansing are education. Where are we heading in Michigan? Do you feel we're doing enough to support, for example, the K-12 system?
It's not only important in Lansing, it's important at every local school district. And if we have the ability to influence policy that helps our teachers, helps our school boards, helps anybody who is supporting a child to get their education. If they are unable to read and learn at the third grade level, because we haven't done anything on the lower side of that, it makes it increasingly difficult for them to be a productive citizen and further on than that. So there's been a great emphasis recently on third grade reading, proficiency at that level. And the phrase is often repeated, and I think it's very true. Before third grade, you're learning to read, and after third grade, you're reading to learn. So
Okay.
the ability for folks, young people, to be very, very productive at that level is important. And this will be something that's going to take a generation to change and get through. We can have the best teachers, we can have the best curriculum, we can have the best support system in the school, but if the child doesn't come to school ready to learn and with the ability to learn because of a difficult home life, almost the other three things don't matter.
Okay.
So this is an effort to help them get beyond that, make sure that they are able to be in a mood or in a presence that they are willing to learn and want to learn or eager to learn. And I would just say, if we can't do that, if we're failing to do that, the social cost of those children into the future is something we won't be able to afford.
I think there's more discussion in Lower Michigan, but what about charter schools? How do you feel about what we're doing with charter schools?
I support all the above. Charter schools, cyber schools, public schools, parochial schools, anything where a parent can be involved in, because they are the closest to their child and know what their child needs to be able to be educated. And they are the responsible entity as well, the parent. So I support a parent's choice in any of those things to try to help their children get what they need.
The higher education, I've had numerous discussions on this show over the years with people talking about the fact that Michigan kind of fell behind in the number of people with college degrees. And that really, communities like ours are good examples. There were good jobs in the mines, there were good jobs in the forest, there were, things that people could do, and the college degree didn't become quite so important. Are we doing what we should be doing in Michigan to educate at the higher levels?
I think we're making a little bit of an adjustment there. We're opening up more to technical schools and other things like that, and not every child needs to go to a four-year college. Some do.
Right.
But the number of folks that just need high school plus a technical degree in some aspect, that area of jobs is the one that we are missing the most. And I think that's where a lot of young people could land and make a great living. And I believe if we change that educational component there, give them that two-choice type thing to do that, they can make a wise decision with their parents on what is the best track for them.
I think the pendulum is kind of swinging back in that direction. I think
it is.
It went pretty heavily in the other direction.
Our skilled trades group is where we lost a lot of folks when we had a very, very difficult decade in Michigan's history. A lot of those folks with those skills left Michigan because they had skills and they're portable skills and they could go somewhere else and apply those. So we want, of course, those folks to come back, but we also need to fill the pipeline with young people who have those skills.
We only have a minute left, but less than a minute. One of the headlines I picked up, talk is swirling in political circles that Senate Majority Leader Arlan Meekhof is considering running for governor in 2018. You want to comment on that, or do you want to announce here? You announced a grandchild here.
When we're not in Lansing, a lot of people have a lot of time in their hands to talk about stuff, and everybody's future is subject to stuff in the wide open. I haven't made any commitments or anything like that. I'm focused on doing the best I can with the members I have, Senator Casperson and others, to do the best thing we can for Michigan, because all of us, I believe all of us, want to finish our terms, sit in our rocking chairs, and all of our kids and our grandkids live and work in Michigan because it's their best opportunity. It's their best option because of the work that we've done.
And 2018 is a long way off. Okay, thanks very much for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. Our guest has been Senator Arlan Meekhof. We'll be back with some other thoughts after we take one more break. When we communicate, some of the traditional phrases and expressions we use can be a little aggravating at times. For example, do you find it at least a little irritating when someone says to you, "You know what?" It's annoying because there is no answer to that question. Chances are you know a lot, but how can you know what? What they're really saying is, "Do you know what I know?" And of course, they really don't mean it as a question at all. They just want to get your attention so they can tell you something they know. Now you might say I'm being picky, but there are a lot of phrases we use to communicate that don't exactly mean what they say. How about the phrase, "with all due respect"? If someone uses that phrase with you, be prepared, because it really doesn't mean they're offering you their respect at all. You might take a stand on some issue and the person you're with says, "Well, with all due respect," and then you find out they might respect you but not your opinion on that issue. It really means they're about to disagree with you. And then there are those familiar little phrases and expressions. Where did they come from? How did we start using them? And do they make any sense? Some do, like, don't make a mountain out of a molehill. Don't make a big deal out of something that isn't. Or someone is making a scene, drawing undue attention to oneself by being dramatic. But how about some of these phrases? He's not the sharpest tool in the shed. The definition we find is someone who isn't witty or sharp. it's pretty clear we don't want to be called that. It's surprising how many expressions have to do with food or eating. If something is easy, we say, it's a piece of cake, or easy as pie. Why do cake and pie get involved? What do they have to do with it? There are a lot of others that involve food. I'm happy as a clam, or he found himself in a real pickle. Then, of course, if a person feels they're being given less consideration than someone else, they might say, hey, what am I, chopped liver? And of course, when we're proven wrong after taking a strong position, we may have to eat crow. They're not all about food. It's raining cats and dogs. Why cats and dogs? Why not chickens or rabbits or squirrels? And speaking of dogs, if we make a wrong assumption about something, then we're barking up the wrong tree. I hope you realize that with this whole discussion, I'm trying to get to the main point. I don't want to be beating around the bush. I'd like to be known as a good guy, but not a goody two-shoes. How does that expression make any sense? A goody two-shoes? And finally, when we come close to a successful outcome, only to fall short at the end, we say, close, but no cigar. In this day and age, if the cigar was the prize, maybe it's better we didn't win. Well, at least I'm happy because I'm feeling fit as a fiddle. Okay, you're right, this has to stop. That's enough. I've thrown in everything but the kitchen sink. So they're all a little strange, but perhaps that's just the fun of our language. And if we don't like it, well, that's the way the cookie crumbles. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Well, thanks for joining us this morning. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you want to see it again or recommend it to someone else, this show is available on the internet. You'll find it at uppermichigansource.com. Today's show should be available starting at about noon tomorrow. And I'm always interested in hearing any comments you might have. Emails are welcome at the Ryan Report at chesstv.com. Well, there's still a lot of matters to be resolved in Lansing, but we're pleased to have had the opportunity to get some insight into those issues from the Michigan Senate Majority Leader, Senator Arlan Meekhof. We got to talk about big box stores, electric power, education, and a lot of important issues. But that's all the time we have for this week's show. The Today Show is up next. Have a great day, and join us next Sunday morning.